The untold truth of Algeria's fight for freedom. One war, one nation's fight for freedom. Over 1 million Algerians killed, thousands tortured, and a nation fighting against 130 years of brutal colonial rule. A story of resilience, betrayal, and the high cost of liberation. This is the untold truth of Algeria's War of Independence. The roots of Algeria's struggle go back to 1830, when France invaded with 37,000 troops and over 100 warships. Within days, they decimated the local population. Thousands of Algerians were killed, and countless more were forced into servitude. Their lands were stolen, and entire villages were destroyed to make way for European settlers. Their culture was suppressed, and their voices silenced. This marked the beginning of 130 years of colonial exploitation. For over 130 years, Algeria suffered under French colonial rule. But by the mid-20th century, the desire for independence could no longer be contained. French colonial rule wasn't just about economic exploitation, it was a system of violence and terror. Entire villages were razed, and those who resisted faced unimaginable brutality. Women and children were often used as tools of psychological warfare, with reports of mass rapes and public executions. In 1945, during peaceful protests in Sétif, French forces killed up to 45,000 Algerians in a single month. This massacre sent a clear message: any demand for freedom would be met with overwhelming force. By the 1950s, the National Liberation Front, FLN, emerged as the voice of Algerian resistance. On November 1, 1954, the National Liberation Front, FLN, launched a series of coordinated attacks, signaling the start of an 8-year war for independence. It was called Toussaint Rouge, or Raid All Saints' Day. This was a war like no other, a guerrilla struggle against one of the world's most powerful colonial empires. The Algerian War was one of the bloodiest decolonization struggles. Over 1 million Algerians were killed, and European settlers, known as pieds noirs, were forced to flee their homes. French forces unleashed a reign of terror, implementing torture as a systematic method to break the Algerian resistance, killing civilians indiscriminately, and Algerians were rounded up and placed in concentration camps. French forces used methods that shocked the world. Torture chambers were set up where Algerian fighters and civilians alike were subjected to electric shocks, waterboarding, and brutal beatings. Mass killings of entire villages were common, with the French often resorting to using poison gas, poisoning water sources, and bombing civilian areas. In France, Algerian migrants protesting the war faced brutal police violence. In October 1961, hundreds of protesters were massacred during a peaceful demonstration in Paris. Their bodies were dumped into the Seine River, a massacre the French government only acknowledged decades later. President Emmanuel Macron refuses to categorize it as a crime. As the war dragged on, extremist settlers and French generals formed the secret army organization, OAS. Their goal was to sabotage Algeria's independence through terror. In 1961 to 62 alone, the OAS killed thousands of Algerians, bombed schools, and burned down libraries containing Algeria's cultural heritage. By 1961, even Charles de Gaulle, who once vowed to keep Algeria French, recognized the war's human and financial toll was too great. A referendum he held in France saw over 75% of voters support Algerian self-determination, but the road to peace was far from smooth. After lengthy negotiations, the Evian Accords were signed in 1962, granting Algeria independence. On July 5, 1962, exactly 132 years after France's invasion, Algeria declared itself free. The cost? Over 1 million lives lost, a nation scarred, but a people unbroken. The FLN took control, promising reforms, but the challenges of rebuilding a nation scarred by war and colonialism were immense. Independence brought its challenges. Today, Algeria faces new battles. Corruption, unemployment, and authoritarianism marred the FLN's rule, and Algeria faced a bloody civil war in the 1990s that claimed another 200,000 lives. Yet, the spirit of resistance remains alive. Today, movements like Hirak continue to fight for justice and democracy, proving that the struggle for freedom never truly ends. From the streets of Algiers to the neglected banlieues of Paris, Algerians continue their fight, not for independence, but for justice, equality, and dignity. Algeria's War of Independence is a testament to the strength of a people determined to reclaim their freedom. But it is also a reminder of the enduring scars of colonialism and the unfinished journey toward true liberation. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold histories of resilience and resistance. This is Untold Africa, uncovering the stories they don't teach in history books. Join us on this journey to rediscover Africa's past and its enduring legacy of strength.